Yeah, but yeah, my friend was saying her brother lives in Portland, and the mom.
So that we have a little bit of the conversation about the wisdom of no escape. So when I said, for those of you who saw that, and half of you probably didn't, we're going to talk about the wisdom of no escape today. What were your thoughts about that? Even if you didn't see it, you heard it now.
Death, I guess, is the first thing.
Death. Okay, maybe death.
There's some things that just
are the way they are. And we're not going to get around it, no matter what strategies we use, no matter how clever we get, no matter how much popcorn we eat or cider we drink. The truth is, things are going to be the way they are. And what about those things? What do we understand about the way we can guarantee some things in this life? Well, what could we say we could guarantee? Like it or not, feel in the mood, not in the mood, cranky day, you're going to run right up into them. Can't get away from it. No escape.
Yeah.
Fear. We're going to experience that. That's a part of our structure to know fear. Injury, illness, realities. Sorry, I didn't see that. That doesn't look good. Yeah. There it is. There's the not pleasant pain. We're not going to get out of it. Right? Loss. No way.
Hatred.
Say it again.
Hatred.
Hatred, aggression, hostility, animosities, judgment, right? All the way to its seed. And its seed of all aggression is what? Not liking, not wanting. That's the seed, not this. And so we could call that saying no to life and this arising, right? What else? The wisdom of no escape. What else are we not getting out of?
Aging.
Aging. No chance. No chance, right? So these are the 5 remembrances. We just did that 2 weeks ago, right? And the reality that this body, by its contract, by our agreement from birth, we are going to confront aging, illness, death, loss of everything that we know and love, at least at this level. And then the 5th remembrance is the promise. Anybody remember what that is? The thing that holds it all together a little. Because when I said this to my my stretch guy at the stretch zone, I said, "You want to know what I say every day?" He goes, "Yeah, I'd really love to hear that. I'm sure it's pleasant." And I went, "Oh, hang in there." This body is of the nature to age. I cannot escape aging. And he went like this. You say that every day? And I said, yeah, so that I can be happy. And he went, that doesn't sound happy. That sounds morbid. And I said, yes, it is if you don't recognize the truth of it, which is given those realities, how then will we live? And when you forget that, you believe that somehow you are now entitled, don't you, or privileged to pleasant. And we happen to live in a place where we establish that reality, don't we, continuously, right? It gets a little cloudy here and we're all. And in my family in Chicago, they go, shut the fuck up. Don't even tell me the degrees. Don't tell me the weather. Don't even do it because you're bragging. And I go, yes, because you already know what the temperature is here. It's 18. So why? It's true, isn't it? because I like remembering I live in a very pretty place. Not helpful. Right. And so the wisdom of no escape is how to hold the realities of the present moment with mindfulness and then respond, the second essential part, with compassion. And otherwise, all the facts simply become fodder for comparisons, don't they? We just use them. Well, it's 68 here. Sorry. Right, then they're just used. I've seen a lot of Range Rovers. I'll give you a good example of comparisons. And I was like, am I stuck? I mean, should I be getting a new car? I mean, everybody's driving these things around. Are they that great? I mean, is there something about this car that, no, nothing. No, it's not. Bronco, right? Every Bronco that goes by, my husband goes, there's another one. Because he likes those from the 60s. Right, there's another one. I'm like, yeah, and not helpful, is it? It just, you can get sick to your stomach believing really then that if you got the right car, right, lived in the right somewhere, had the right temperature, got the hair done a certain way, well, then you could be okay. Right. And the wisdom of no escape says, I already know the truth of this, even when I fall in the well a little bit, that I could see that too, that I could even see me fall, would be the wisdom factor. And then from the recognition, we wouldn't have to keep cultivating the story, would we? We could just go, just comparing mind. It's fine. And in fact, in the wisdom of no escape, I'm going to read a little quote from Pema here. She really says this is actually the way out of suffering. Recognizing that habit-natured mind that just wants what it wants or likes the sunny day better, it's no problem, right? And then in fact, that's exactly then being terrified of death, being pissy about an injury, being impatient as I have been, for example, about my knee. The wisdom of no escape says this is exactly the perfect practice moment designed perfectly for you. And that there would be nowhere else to be but exactly that. And that that moment is in fact not accidental. It is conditioned on other moments that essentially you also design. Now, I'm not saying, so we have to be careful here because this gets us in trouble, this concept, that because you got an illness, you deserved it. Or because you got an illness, it was your fault, you set it up. If only you'd done something differently, you could have avoided it. I am not saying that, right? I don't think people choose cancer. I don't think so. And then what we do choose is what? Since that's illness, aging, death, and the loss of all things is a non-negotiable. What then do we choose? Since that's not going to be it. How we choose to relate to, hold, embrace, we could even say yes, we could even say, and then open. That seems difficult since my stretch guy just went, oh my God, that seems so noble. And then learn instead of that contractedness, right? Instead of the shutdown, instead of the pissed off, right? Instead of the self-pity, what else do we do? Angry at ourselves, angry at others. What else? Blame. Perfect. It's so handy, right? Right off of me, right onto something. And actually, what do we blame most? Ourselves. Actually, to blame another, we understand in the neuroscience that the very first lens you had to wear was I should have been different, because then that would have been different. And then it could have been, what's the end of the story? Oh, okay. Had I only gotten it right, then I would have been able somehow to avoid the realities that we've already agreed are inescapable, right? But look at the kind of insanity in it. And Pema says, well, that insanity is the path. It isn't to get somewhere else. It isn't to be some other way. It isn't to get better. One of our myths, right, is if I improve, then it'll be better. And she's ridiculous. The best thing to do is to recognize that you're here and just see if you can't breathe with, open into, what's the other words? I'm using the words embrace, right? The moment we're in. And then what do we do instead? Blame. What else did we say? Aggression. Shut down. Distract. It's very easy here, isn't it? Because you can look anywhere and it's pleasant. Distraction, denial, avoid it, right? These are traditional. And the wisdom of no escape says, don't try to get out of any of it. Don't try to be different first. See if you can't reside, at least with some number of breaths, with exactly the body mind of aversion. That's the path, that there is actually nowhere else to go. And all the grafting on, all the spiritual bypassing, all the I'll see it this way is a waste of time. A complete waste of time. So we would call that toxic positivism. I think it's one of the words. Has anybody heard this term, toxic? Right? Like, let me see the lemonade in the lemons. And Pema's saying, maybe you just recognize lemons as sour first. Maybe you just sit with the reality of the lemon, and then more importantly, your own experience with that, with recognition, eyes watering, right, mouth puckering, and then that what she's going to call here Maitri, the truth of kindness that will allow us to open to our experience fully. And so what do you suppose happens when we don't open fully to the moment we're in, particularly those we don't like? You miss everything, because actually you're not there. You're in a story, you're in a narrative, you're in distraction, you're looking the other way, right? So actually you're missing, we could say, the spiritual path, couldn't we? You're missing your teaching. You're missing the opportunity to grow, learn, open. Okay, so we get the idea. This is what Pema has to say. Loving kindness, Maitri, towards ourselves doesn't mean getting rid of anything. Now, it sounds simple, but it's not so easy to do, is it? Maitri means that we can still be crazy after all these years. We can still be angry after all these years. We can still be timid or jealous or full of feelings of unworthiness. The point is not to try to change ourselves. This is a very big teaching. Meditation practice isn't about trying to throw ourselves away and become something better. It's about befriending who we are already. Let's just sit with that. Oh. Right? Oh, who we are just this moment. Confused, aggravated, frustrated, right? Pain. Can we be courageous enough then? Isn't it? It's an amazing fearlessness, I think, just to be with oneself as we are. And most of us spend most of our time, even in our formal meditation practice, doing what? Trying to get somewhere. And so we're going to work on that today. The ground of practice is you or me or whoever we are right now, just as we are. That's the ground. That's what we study. That's what we come to know with tremendous curiosity and interest. When thoughts come up, we're going to touch them very lightly. She goes on to explain the method, right? And so is it the job of each of us in our practice to try to be calm? Waste of time. Would it be the job of our practice not to have any thoughts? Complete ridiculous, right? Enterprise. Would it be to feel pleasant? And we have to remember, you could try. And by the way, you're going to make your practice, right? This is what we mean by setting up the conditions for suffering. You're going to make that practice horrible because you're going to be, shouldn't be this, not this, calm down, just breathe. Do you want to know how many times I've said just breathe to myself? About 100 million. Two truths. I was already breathing and I didn't like it. That's when just breathe comes in, right? I was already breathing, forget about it. And I didn't like it. It was hard or hot or tender or achy, right? And I didn't want to be with that. And transformation, whatever else you think about that, or enlightenment, whatever else you think about that, doesn't come from getting away from anything, does it? And we know this, don't we, deeply? Can't you feel the wisdom in you? You know it. You're going, I know, it's true. I just don't like it. And so we're going to practice today, seeing if we can't stand ourselves for maybe just one breath at a time. How's that sound? Okay. Anything else we want to say before we practice? I'll see if I can't get rid of this so this isn't right in the middle of this. And so then the practice in the Vipassana tradition, which is the way we essentially begin. I'm going to back this up a little bit. So we're going to set ourselves up for our practice. And you don't have to make this extra difficult because it already will be, right? You don't have to add distress to this. And so we begin always in contact with the earth. And just feeling into those contact points, whatever ones you can sense, feel, and know. And we like to begin with the base of the feet, the legs and the hips, establishing our solid base. And then you notice that the breath itself becomes the medium, the conduit of the mind. And so when I said feet and legs and hips, one of the things you did very intuitively in wisdom was drop that out breath down into that part of the body, along with our clear attention. And we're going to drop the breath again because we're holding it a little bit just from that conversation, very possibly, and other resistance, other aversion, other attachment in our minds that play in the background. And so then taking a big in-breath, breathe in as deeply as you can. And a big out-breath. And see if you can't let that all go. Settling in a little more deeply into the seat. Now, remember, we don't have to get rid of anything, including that finch sound, Brad. Not required. But we are going to, with discipline and joyful effort, apply 51% of our attention to that out breath. We call that a light touch. And see if you can't begin by at least catching the beginning of the out breath. Feel that sense of wave and release. And then stay as best you can until the stillness pervades. And then see if you can't touch in to that stillness, sometimes called open space, awareness itself. See if you can't touch in like the light touch of a feather on a bubble. Don't hold the breath, but see if you can rest the mind in that still open space. And the instruction here is simple. Breathe into the out breath, capturing sensations from the beginning, the middle, and the end of the out breath. And then we open. And in that opening, we don't bring thoughts, we don't have to incorporate preferences or bias. We simply open into the vast space of which we are that essential, inherent part. A short breath or a long one, it doesn't matter. With each out breath, we're cleaning the lens. So that we greet stillness with the still mind. And we greet prejudice, bias with knowing. That this one breath is the whole of the path. And so we commit ourselves wholeheartedly. Just this. Saying yes to whatever arises with each breath. A particular sensation, a moment of pleasant or unpleasant. The gripping or rejecting mind. Perfect practice. Just this. And because there is nothing else to do, we can finally relax. Not because we're trying, but because we're not trying. Nothing to improve, nothing to make better. The moment recognized, seen, known, and felt, already perfect as it is. And then expanding the field of our attention beyond just the out breath and open space to the felt sense of this whole body breathing. And you may make contact with other sensations, seeing if we can't allow, accept, abide, let be. Knowing hot as hot and cold as cold. Tight, tense, pulsing, achy, itchy. See if you can't breathe into, be with. And then simply open, at least for 1 to 3 breaths. Opening wider to include sounds. Just like the breath, just like sensations. Creating space and room. And opening to include each. And rather than seeking sound, see if you can rest the attention in that vast, open, empty space, letting sounds simply appear and disappear. The awakening factor of sound. And then opening again to see if you can actually begin to notice the preferencing, clinging, rejecting mind. And it often begins with subtle movement of mind rather than a headline or a paragraph about the sound. See if you don't notice that very subtle tendency to move towards or away from, rather than holding that vast open space, letting sound simply appear and disappear. There's preferencing happening self-selection happening even here. And remember, we're not trying to get rid of anything. We want to see the quality of that mind. And you're just resting in open space and then noticing that little flicker of movement towards the bird, away from the dog. We may even pick it up beneath that in the contractedness of the body. And you see that the minute you begin to turn towards the sound, you have now eliminated all other experience. Just good to know. Thoughts about sounds, thoughts about the body, movement towards and away from are actually continuous. This is a part of the path. We're not trying to get rid of the movement. We're not trying to get rid of thoughts or sounds. And we rest in that vast, open, spacious quality of awareness, opening and including everything. Including the liking, not liking mind. and with loving kindness, with care, with deep compassion? Can we invite ourselves to continue to open? And remember, there is no requirement to change anything. I'm not going to try to get rid of my achy right knee or the mind that wishes it were otherwise. Can I just see the conditioned arisings? Me and not wanting, and the movement of the mind towards or away. And then we open the heart bigger. We feel for ourselves and all those just like me who don't want an achy knee or a sensation like this. And we settle back and relax and open a little bit more and more with each breath. This is the path. And then many thoughts, no problem. Attached to sounds, no problem. Because it is all, the path is all in the seeing and the holding and the abiding and in the kindness and compassion that we offer. And I feel for myself exactly as I am without taking too much claim of the me. But simply this set of conditions arising like this. An ache like this, a tenderness like this. The reality of our shared humanness like this. And then we begin to recognize that the only way out of our suffering is to fully arrive to this present moment with whatever's here. And then we don't have to run so far or shut down so fast. There's nothing to make perfect or better at all. And then check in on the quality of the breath. As we rest in that vast and boundless, awakened heart mind. Feel the sensations in the body. Nothing else to be. And then without preferences, without being captivated and hijacked by thoughts or beliefs or preferences, we simply rest in the open heart. And recognize the naturally flowing loving kindness and compassion. And then we offer the blessings in any direction, towards self, towards other, towards a neutral, a loved one, a friend, someone with whom we have difficulty, recognizing that no matter where we touch in with this open heart, it touches all things. And so we breathe. And as we breathe in, we offer the blessing to ourselves. And on the out breath, as best we can, we send it out. Remembering there really is no inside, outside at all. May I be happy. May all beings be happy. May I be free from suffering. May all beings be free from suffering. May I be grateful and rejoice at this reality of my precious human life. May all beings be grateful and rejoice for their blessings. May I open and embrace the wisdom, compassion, loving kindness, and equanimity available. Just this one breath. May all these rest in the great arms of equanimity, love, compassion, kindness. And may this practice, this very day, continue. So be. So any questions, observations about the practice?
Kind of had a little insight last week, and I was playing with this week as well. This was kind of like momentum and stronger thoughts. I always heard like, just come back to the breath, come back to the breath, come back. But sometimes it's not that easy, and I could only explain it kind of almost as like if you were to light a match and you observe the light, and then it slowly burns back down to your fingertips. For me, it was like I see a thought, and then I almost have to feel like I dissolve it, sit with it, and like accepting more of acceptance until I'm like led back to the breath. Like I'm never not coming back to the breath, not forcing it back, but
Yeah.
like, it almost feels like the thought comes, and I stay with it as long as I want or need to. Led back to the breath, and there's this empty space for a moment.
Yeah.
Instead of, I just felt like it was, the insight was not coming back, but being led back.
Yes, I think that's actually correct, Brenton. And actually, in the Vipassana tradition, because we're working to first calm the mind, there is the instruction, let go of the thought, come back. And in this tradition, which is Mahayana, it's a little more developed. It says the open space is already there. You don't actually have to do anything. There is no thought that holds. It is only a flame, a bubble, right? You're holding it if you're holding it. And to know something about that would be as useful, if not more so, wouldn't it? And then feeling for the nature of that. I'm holding on to something if it stays. and just being aware of that. But really, what are we doing? We're holding the thought in open space. And then it just, it dissolves itself. You're not doing anything. You're just going like the breath, right? You're not breathing. The breath is happening.
Yeah, and it's like even if you're not trying to meditate, when you're being still and you're closing your eyes and you're just breathing, what was I feeling this morning? I felt like I was transported into a different world by a thought. That's how all consuming it can be.
Yes.
And then you realize, oh my God, no, I'm here at Diana's. You know? And you're like, wow, that thought is so powerful that it makes you feel like you're somewhere else.
Yes. The thought is a thought. Actually, what ends up capturing us is our attachment to it. And we miss that part, right? Because then we believe that's a powerful thought. No, it isn't. It's just a thought.
Yeah.
You took it. You ran with the ball, right? The ball is just the ball. It doesn't go anywhere until you pick it up and run. Right. Create something with it called, it's like this or it's not like that. And yes, it is then true also, and the neuroscience suggests otherwise, that our habit for attachments cultivate a certain neural pathway. That is also true. So then my thoughts about caramel corn appear to be pretty significant. Well, it isn't actually the thought. It is then a certain pathway I have cultivated by my attachment or aversion to it, right? That I'm routing. I'm the driver in that process, as long as we know, because thoughts are just thoughts. Murderous thoughts, pornographic thoughts, thoughts about doesn't really just thought until what? The mind gets engaged. There is something in the I-making self, the self-clinging nature of attachment and aversion. They are equal, by the way, that gets involved. Otherwise, but it's useful to know, isn't it? Like caught in watermelon mind.
Well, it's like if you're not meditating and you have a thought, you can just act on that thought. But when you made the decision to sit still for 30 minutes, you can't act on that thought.
Not with the body.
Yeah.
But boy, that mind is busy. Isn't it? Like, woo, got all kinds of stuff going on, pushing that over there, getting that over there, trying to dissolve something. And actually, it's a lot extra work that you don't need to be doing. Truthfully, you don't actually need that. Can I notice the looping thought is, right? Some quality of attachment or aversion. That would be wise. And then you don't have to get rid of it. Yeah, Rebecca. Yes. Yes, that's the wisdom factor. We call this awakening or enlightenment factors. The very recognizing that quality of mind in relationship to the object is enlightenment itself. Because then I have now what? Infinite choice. I can loop it again, not loop it again. I can, right? Or just rest with it or just let it dissolve if it's dissolving. I don't actually have to get so active as in that early stage of just stabilizing mind. We tend to offer that instruction, like just stay on the breath, come back to the breath, do your best. In this tradition, which is, we'll say a little up on that, calm abiding practice. But don't we have to begin somehow in a way that can feel somewhat calming or, right? So we take one step, one breath at a time to begin. That is a useful beginning. Right. Other thoughts about this?
You were asking us to notice our preference.
Yeah.
All of a sudden I noticed my whole head was leaning forward.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. The body will engage. It's beautiful the body is a beautiful wisdom factor, isn't it? Because we can really pick up attachment aversion with the use of the body. You know, that little leaning in, leaning away, right? Falling. It's just so skillful to recognize. And again, nothing to change. It says the wisdom of no escape. You don't have to unbend. Because in knowing the leaning in, or pulling from, you already have all the wisdom. Then what do you want to do, right? Then you do what you do with that. And the teaching says you will need 100, I forgot the eons factor, but it's a large number, bigger than many lifetimes. You will need that many opportunities to see it again and again, so that it has no, that there is just simple equanimity. So you notice the leaning first, don't you? You notice the struggle first. You notice the aversion. You notice I didn't even want that. I just left. Right. I used to get instructions from Joko and I think, I'm not going to do that. No. She doesn't know my mind. I could look still. What does she know what's going on? And then she'd go, what were you doing? What were you doing? Because whatever you were doing, right? Because that's the quality of mind. We can even pick that up. Isn't that amazing? We know the quality of then what we call collected mind. You can even go, ooh, little jumpy, and nobody's moving, right? And we actually do impact each other that way. We're getting clear in the neuroscience on this as well. One mind is impacting the next. And you didn't say, think, move, right? Morphic resonance, it's being called. Morphic resonance. Isn't it incredible?
Wait, is that when there's a group of people meditating together?
No, it's actually generational as well. Yes, it includes a group of people resonating, right? Certain really levels of brain wave and impacting each other in that way, but it's actually generational as well. Yeah, morphic resonance. So the generational. There were studies done, and I think his name was Rupert Sheldrake. So look him up. Rupert Sheldrake did some studies on deer. And he noticed in herds of deer, a group of deer that never went over to an electric fence. Thought that was interesting. Like, why are those other deer getting electrocuted over there and this other group just not right doing it? And didn't make any sense. Like, are they just intuitively smarter? They pick up something. So we watched the deer over a couple generations, and what he saw was that the deer that got electrocuted way up there, actually the wisdom of that translated generationally to those great grandchildren deer who went nope, and couldn't have known it, didn't see it, right? Wasn't like, oh, I saw you just get hit by a car. I'm not going to get at all. And so they called that morphic resonance, that there was a wisdom by the very experience of that, even when it didn't look like it translated to the, like, that baby didn't see that mom get elected, right? That just kept growing, right? And so you hear this in little ways humanly. My mom just did this with me the other day. She said, I've just realized now that I probably am allergic to coffee. I probably shouldn't be she's drunk pots of coffee like her whole life. And I was like, yeah, I know that. Like, I have that. I know that. Now that's a really clear genetic, right? But my sons who don't know that can't drink caffeine either. That's a more physical, but you know what I'm saying? The wisdom just keeps going well beyond the physical. I'm giving you more tangible examples, right?
For example, if I'm in a good mood,
Yeah.
relatively good mood.
Yeah.
And my daughter, who has pretty dramatic mood swings sometimes. If she all of a sudden is going through something super negative or sad or whatever, and comes in the room, it's like all consuming.
Yes.
And so I have trouble going into that.
Falling in. Yeah, well, there may be that element, right? The anxious mind creates other anxious minds is a reality. The pained mind is going to activate that aspect within you, though she did not make that happen. She isn't right. We couldn't give that to Lauren. That wouldn't be very fair. She's not the cause of that, but it can activate by resonance your pained, anxious, sad, grief-stricken, wouldn't it? This is a part of our shared humanity, right? So we watch the Ukraine presentation and we feel the distress of that, right? And we cry, right? We better, huh? Because then what?
Not to.
Would
And I
it?
just
Well,
thought,
would it be more pleasant not to? Then what?
Or is it just good enough? I mean, does it go beyond families to cultures? I mean, it just keeps going. So the opportunity is good to know. Is there an opportunity?
To be with anyway, not to run the other way. And then what? Well, respond. And we don't typically respond unless we know it too. Right? If I'm not crying about the distress of that, I'm not buying anybody a stove over there. I'm like, ah. You know what I'm saying? We have to know the experience, and from the knowing, we respond. Right? And yes, we all prefer positives. Yeah. Right? And you don't want to fall in the well, Kelly, maybe you're saying. We have to be a little careful about that, that I take it on so much that I can't respond or function either. Well, there's no benefit here, is there? That's the equanimity factor, right? How do I hold it? Well, we practice. That's why we're here. We're practicing. Can I hold this moment? Can I hold this ache? Can I hold this right tenderness? Just this one breath with stability, and then rather than the autopiloted habit of contractedness, can I practice in these shallow waters called the present moment of just opening, and maybe a little. And opening how? Well, Brad just said it, with recognition, right? Just noticing preference. I was in a good mood. You walked in. I didn't like that much. This is genius. You're already, there it is, enlightenment factor realized. You're already there. And then what do I do with that? Right? Begin by recognizing my own humanness. I like the pleasant more than the unpleasant. Who doesn't? But then we're not led, right? We're not just pulled, hijacked by virtue of the brain stem. We now get to make a choice about it, which is, well, I can stay or attend or respond for a moment. And then I can also stay open and responsive to myself, which is, a few minutes of that. Maybe I need a break. And wouldn't that be skillful as well?
And that capacity of attention, being open-minded.
Yes.
And being very panicked initially, not being able to meditate. Just
Yes.
darkness.
Yes.
And it being very, to know how much I had grown accustomed to certain means of attention.
Yes.
And like how it seems very have to adjust,
That's right.
right?
That's right. That's right. And then so recognizing sleepy, recognizing inattention is no longer lost in it, isn't it? That you recognized inattention is actually, look at the wisdom in that you could know inattention is, again, wisdom factor, isn't it? And then I can't even keep that. right? But knowing I can't track is a certain kind of mindfulness, isn't it? We had a guy at the Zen Center of San Diego, a very skilled. He was the guy who coined the happenings in the '60s, and there were performance arts and all kinds of things. Alan, and he got Alzheimer's, and we were all curious about because we'd already been told, well, people who have neurological things can't meditate. And it wasn't actually true. He could say, just like you did, noticing mind wandering, noticing forgetting, knowing forgetting, right? Which was actually stunning to watch because he was really there in the forgetting in a way that brought him there.
Did he meditate till the end?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, very much so. Very much so. Was a 40-year plus meditator, but would say forgetting, and he would call it out loud. Forgetting, forgotten, right? And I just thought it was a precious, amazing teaching. Like knowing forgetting is not forgetting now. Knowing distress is no longer being quite caught in it as much. There is a larger container now of your true nature, isn't it? Holding it. Holding it. So we just stay in that recognition. So this is our big practice. I was inspired to this, and then we have to end, by Greg, who said, wow, I'm just noticing aversion. And I was like, that's just brilliant, Greg. And he said, no, it's not very pleasant. I don't like that. And I was like, except it's the wisdom factor. Knowing aversion is the path to its end, actually. And yes, you are going to rest in it also, aren't you? You're not getting out of it now. This is the no escape part, right? We have to literally go through, not around, and not the other way at all. And yeah, who wants to climb the hill? Right? No. Except there is a vista there, the part I'll tell you, and it's guaranteed for all of us. There's a vista that then is just open, spacious, and holds everything. It's quite the view, I hear. Then that lost in even forgetting or inattention or aggression or aversion or attachment, no longer caught. Right. And so we'll keep doing that, won't we? A breath at a time. And then what's the practical application? Recognizing, right? Just some movement, contracted or right body or mind, and then just pausing for a breath or two and just naming or noting or labeling. So for people, by the way, with neurological conditions, we actually ask them to say it out loud because they don't have quite the film in place to hold it, but to say noticing forgetting, noticing sleepy, noticing contracted is actually more helpful. There's a little more camera for that. So just so you know, with people with dementia who are meditators, we have them do it like that, not just silently, but actually place voice and concretize like this happening. And we do it with pain management as well, right? So those who know pain management strategies, we have them call out the sensations so the mind doesn't flip over into this is pain and I can't stand it. We just keep having them name, tense, hot, hard, nothing, right? So they can see the pattern themselves rather than just go into the grip and get lost exactly in this thing that we're freezing, Right, because that's not life. That's only us. So this is why we practice together, right? Okay. I've got to go. We're going to go to Showers of Blessings to drop off some of the bags that we did last week. Thank you so much. That's amazing. Some of those bags are now going to go to Just in Time Youth. We had some extras. I'm helping move in 6 graduates from the Just in Time program today into their first time ever apartments. Very, 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 very exciting. And I think a little soap and a little tea and a little pair of socks would be a beautiful contribution to them. And just know that the other remaining will go to My Safe Place with David Oates downtown, and they are a human trafficking shelter. And they could really use those things as well. So just know that that little bit of 45 minutes that we spent our time on last week is going to be impacting people right now. So thank you all for that. May we all be filled with loving kindness, and may we be well. May we be peaceful and at ease, and may we all be happy. Truly. And thank you all for your practice today and every day. I'll look forward to seeing you on Tuesday on Zoom for chapters 8 and 9 in How We Live is How We Die. And next Saturday is the 11th, 18th, and we will be here. We'll be here. So I hope that you join. And if it's too cold, we'll have the heaters down here. Yeah. Woo-hoo. Thank you all again.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Be well. Oh, no, please. Do you need any?
Oh, no.
You're good.
I'm good.
Okay, you're one-handed. I'm not that good.